Tonight, the Georgia Department of Transportation is holding a public hearing.
Standing room only at what's expected to be the last public comment meeting in our area over the proposed Palmetto Pipeline.
Hundreds of landowners will be affected in Georgia alone. This proposed pipeline will stretch from Belton, South Carolina, along the Savannah River and into Florida. 12 counties in Georgia are on the route, the longest stretch right through Effingham County.
Kinder Morgan has submitted an application of public convenience and necessity. GDOT has a decision to either approve or deny that application by May 19th.
Now, if it passes, Kinder Morgan would be able to use eminent domain to buy up property to build the pipeline, whether folks want to sell or not, and a lot of them have a lot of problems with that.
Protesters have come out and forced to voice strong opposition to the proposed pipeline.
Inside the meeting, folks by the dozens filled out the petitions against the pipeline and then packed into the Richmond Hill City Center to hear the presentation by Kinder Morgan, the company proposing to build the pipeline.
My name is Mike Bolden. I'm the State Utility Engineer for Georgia Department of Transportation. I'm here to represent the department in this public hearing for the Palmetto Pipeline. As you know, the Palmetto Products Pipeline has submitted for a certificate of public convenience and necessity on February the 13th through the department for a proposed pipeline that would extend from South Carolina down to Jacksonville, going through 13 counties in Georgia, from Augusta down through to Florida. This is one of several steps that they must do before they can do this pipeline. This is the first step that they must do. We've held 6 public meetings that had previously been held to discuss the proposed pipeline, allowing for input and comment from the public. This is the first of 2 public hearings that we're going to hold at this time. All comments and concerns expressed at the previous meetings, the other 6, that was received by GDOT are being considered. GDOT will also consider any comments presented at tonight's public meeting and the one that's scheduled for May the 7th in Waynesboro, as well as any written comments received between now and May the 15th. Now, I know that board out there says May the 1st, but when we done that board, we were only planning on the one. We have since extended it and had scheduled a second public hearing, which is going to cut off comment period on May the 15th. So any comments accepted will be accepted from now till May the 15th. Now I want to introduce you to Helen Taylor. She's an attorney with the GDOT Legal Office that will go over the format of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. As Mike said, I'm Helen Taylor. I'm an attorney with the Georgia Department of Transportation and the Office of Legal Services. We are here today. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm not used to holding a microphone. We're here today because the law, specifically Section 22-3-82 in the Official Code of Georgia, that is OCGA 22-382, grants pipeline companies the right to acquire property or interest in property by eminent domain for the construction, reconstruction, operation, and maintenance of pipelines in this state. Georgia law, in that code section and the following code sections, provides, however, that prior to initiating eminent domain proceedings or threatening to do so, the pipeline company must do 3 things. They must first give the landowners whose property may be condemned the proper notice. 2, they must obtain a certificate of public convenience and necessity from the Georgia DOT. And 3, they must obtain a permit from the director of the EPD, that is the Environmental Protection Division at the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. In addition to these Georgia-imposed requirements, federal laws and regulations also apply to the proposed pipeline. The Palmetto Pipeline currently has a petition pending before the FERC, that is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Of all the state law requirements for the exercise of eminent domain for the construction of the Palmetto Pipeline, the Georgia DOT, that's my agency, Mike's agency, we are only involved in the application for the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, and that alone is the subject of this hearing. The Georgia Code and regulations give the department 90 days from the date that reasonable public notice of the application and proposed route was given to render a final decision on Palmetto's application. The first public notice was issued on February the 18th, and we expect a decision from the Commissioner of DOT by May 19th. Georgia law does not provide for an extension of this time frame. That's based on the statutes and the regulations. There's no provision for an extension. It is the intent of the General Assembly to allow the public to provide input on the application for the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. We have the transcripts, as Mike said, of the 6 previous public meetings held on this pipeline project, as well as written comments that have already been submitted to the GDOT, and all those will be considered. There are 3 ways to submit comments from here on out. You can speak publicly here tonight, or at the second public hearing, which will be held on May 7th in Waynesville. Secondly, you can leave your written comments with us in the comment box here tonight or at the second public hearing. Or third, you can continue to mail in written comments to the office, our office in Atlanta. We have provided forms, you probably saw them when you came in, that you can fill out indicating your support or opposition. You may leave those comments here in the comment box, like I said, or submit them by mail, and the address is on the form. Please be mindful of the deadline when submitting those written comments. All things considered, this is not a legal requirement, this is just common sense and professional courtesy, if you may. All things considered, if you could submit those closer to now than to the May 15th deadline, those of us who work at GDOT would really appreciate it. But we will consider all comments that are submitted by the deadline. There are sign-in sheets at the entrance, which you should have seen, for those who would like to speak tonight. And for those of you who may have been to the public meetings that were held on this project, tonight's format will be a little different. First, we have asked Palmetto Pipeline representatives to present information in support of their application for the certificate and to give an overview of their project. Then we will ask members who have signed up, members of the audience who have signed up, to go to the microphone in the middle, one at a time, and make comments. And we have the sign-in sheet, the first one Mike has, and we are going to call the people up by name to make those comments. So please listen for your name. And we're going to ask you to make their comments in support or opposition or just a comment. You don't have to categorize it. Regarding the application for the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. And we need you to make those comments at the microphone so that the court reporter who's here can accurately transcribe everything that is said. It is important that the rest of the people here tonight can be respectful of the person who is speaking at the microphone, because the court reporter can only take down one person at a time, and she needs to get that person who's speaking so that can become the public record. So that will all be considered when the commissioner is deciding how to decide on the application. When you come up, please state your name and this town you're from. Oh, state your name and spell it, if you will, for the court reporter. She's going to have a lot of names to deal with tonight. Please also state the city where you reside. We don't need your entire address, but you may give that if you wish to. As you can see, there are many, many people here tonight. We're going to have to limit the time for each person to speak to 2 minutes to ensure that we can get as many comments as we can. There will not be an opportunity for questions and answers in the format. The purpose of this meeting is for the Georgia DOT to get your public comments. Please remember that today's hearing is related only to the issue of public convenience and necessity. Issues related to the environment or questions related to the specific location of the pipeline will get reviewed at a later date by the Department of Natural Resources, not the Georgia DOT. Before we hear from representatives who applied for the certificate, Mike, do you have anything else to say? No.
At this time, I'm going to ask a representative from Palmetto to present the information relevant to the public convenience and necessity of the project. And at that time, after that, I will ask for those of you who want to make comments to come up to the mic as Helen spoke. I will call your name after they do it. They've got about 5 to 10 minutes for Palmetto, and then I'll go straight into this so we can get as many people's comments as we can. So at this time, I would ask a representative from Palmetto to come up and give his comments.
Thanks to the Department of Transportation for hosting this hearing and for all of you for coming out tonight to express your thoughts on this proposed project. I'm Alan Four, Vice President with Kinder Morgan, and I'll take a few minutes to give you an overview of our project and then talk specifically to the public convenience and necessity components of our application. As you know, Kinder Morgan is a pipeline infrastructure and transportation company. We've operated in Georgia for over 60 years, and we transport product. We transport product at the request of our customers, who ultimately provide the product to homes and businesses. In this particular case, we're proposing to transport gasoline, diesel, and ethanol that will ultimately be used at gas stations, local gas stations that many of you used here tonight to drive to this meeting. So when we look at projects to expand, we do it at the specific behest of customers. We're a customer-driven company. And we have proposed a project that we've looked at closely for over 10 years. But in the past, the commercial interest in the project has not been there. It is now. And that's based not only upon the usage of refined products, gasoline, diesel, and ethanol, that's currently being used, but projections for use over the next 25 years. So we're trying to design a project that's going to meet current needs and also the future needs of the states of Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. What we're proposing is a pipeline that would transport 150,000 to approximately 165,000 barrels a day of product. And those estimates are based upon what our customers have requested. And the way that we design projects too is not will this pipeline be used if it's built, but what is firmly needed, firm long-term commitments, contractual commitments by customers to make sure that on day one when this pipeline goes in service, that it is at or near capacity. In other words, that it is needed. These customers are signing up for long-term commitments to ship product on this project. How the Palmetto Pipeline project fits within our system, and I encourage you to take a look at our website for maps and additional documents. Also, I'll draw your attention to the frequently asked questions document that we have outside tonight. I encourage you to take a look at that. But this will connect with our plantation pipeline system, which currently transports refined products to the state of Georgia and to really the entire southeastern United States, actually all the way up to Washington, D.C. We're a major provider of energy to Hartsfield International, Charlotte, Reagan National, and most of the military bases in the southeastern United States. So we're proposing an extension of that system that already supplies refined products to northern Georgia into central and southern Georgia. Our project would begin in Belton, South Carolina, terminate in Jacksonville, Florida, with drop-off points in North Augusta and in Savannah. And those are, again, designed to support specific needs for customers for gas delivery to those particular areas. So when we're asked what this project looks like and what pipeline construction looks like and how this is going to impact particular areas, take a look at the 3,000 miles of pipe we have currently in the state of Georgia, including right here in Bryan and Chatham counties. We've operated here successfully. And we look forward to continuing to operate not only those lines, but the additional line that we're proposing today. So specifically to the need, our plans for delivery to the region. We anticipate that of the approximately 150 to 160,000 barrels per day on this project, approximately 50% of that supply will be designated for the Georgia area. And I say Georgia area because some will be in southern Georgia as part of the Jacksonville component, and some will be in northern Georgia as part of the North Augusta component. But we anticipate Georgia use of the project to be about 50% of the entire capacity of the line. And that translates to about 40 to 50,000 barrels per day to the Augusta region, and about 20 to 25,000 barrels per day to the Savannah area. That leaves about half of the remaining capacity, about 70,000 barrels per day, for Jacksonville. But again, we anticipate some of the supply delivered to Jacksonville will also be making its way into the state of Georgia. Certainly, this project is going to create additional competition. Right now, Savannah is the only major community in the state of Georgia that does not have a pipeline delivery system for refined products. It comes by truck and it comes by boat. So this is another source of energy for reliability, for competitiveness, and we believe cost effectiveness. Now, are there any guarantees that prices will go down as part of the Palmetto project? We can't guarantee that. We don't control gas prices. We're a transportation company. We transport product. But if you're bringing in an additional 150,000 barrels of supply of any product into an area, we anticipate it will have a positive effect, if that's any commodity, refined products or any commodity. So the project will have the benefit of additional supply to the region from an infrastructure system that currently does not transport that product. We'll pay taxes on this project. We anticipate over the entire system about $12 million. In Georgia, that will be close to $5 million annually. That will be distributed according to the tax formulas of the state of Georgia to local governments. We anticipate about 28 full-time employees as part of the project and about 1,200 construction workers as part of the project. The investment in the state of Georgia for this project is over $500 million. That's about half of the cost of the project. Half of the product coming on the pipeline, half of the cost of the project is for the state of Georgia. Again, going to the investment and the public purpose and the public need. From a schedule perspective, we are early in the process. We're just beginning the discussions with landowners, attempting to further refine our routing system to address concerns that have been expressed by landowners, stakeholders, and others. Examples of that in Screven County, for example, in consultation with local officials, we found that our co-located route, co-located by the Georgia power line, was potentially impacting a Revolutionary War battlefield. So we routed around that. We've started out with a project that is 86% co-located in the state of Georgia. So that means that 86% of our route is adjacent to existing infrastructure. That could be pipeline, or power line, or railroad, or other infrastructure. So co-located, which means within or adjacent to existing infrastructure, and that's by design. It doesn't mean there are no impacts, it means there are less impacts by co-location with existing infrastructure. We've also begun discussions with individual landowners. We request first survey permission before we ever get to the process of accessing property via easement. And at this point, we've had over 90% of those we have contacted about survey permission that have allowed us survey permission. Now, that's not granting us an easement, that's a separate process. But once we get to the process of easements, our history in Georgia is over 90% of reaching an accommodation with landowners for access to their property. Each landowner will be compensated for their individual property and the access to it. So I know I'm running out of time, and I want to be mindful because this is your hearing to state your comments. But I would encourage all of you to take a look at the project descriptions and what we're proposing to do. There's a lot of information out there, and I think we can do a better job of providing that information to you. And we're going to be working very hard to do that. Our land agents are here tonight. We encourage you to talk to them or talk to me or anyone else associated with the project to provide additional information. And we're committed as a 60-year corporate citizen in the state of Georgia to continuing our efforts with the state and having this pipeline system operate in the same way our systems has operated successfully in the state of Georgia for the last 60 years. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Don't take my paper. Okay, way I'm going to do this, I'm going to call up the person that's going to speak, and I'm going to call the person that's next in line so you can get ready so that there'll be no delay if we can. I apologize up front if I mispronounce your name. I'm going to do the best I can. Billy Morris, Billy Morris. And next is Noel Sweeney. Sweeney? Okay. No, you just wait till he gets done.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Boland, Lawyer Taylor, Mr. Ford, thank you so much and appreciate your comments very much. My name is Billy Morris and I live in Augusta, Georgia. My family has lived in this state for 7 generations, 1823. That's a little longer than the 60 years that the Kinder Morgan Pipeline Company has been here. We're blessed to own and operate a variety of media, hospitality, and agribusiness. The pipeline will significantly damage my family's property. I wish to express my appreciation to the Georgia Department of Transportation, to its Commissioner, Russell McMurray, as well as to the representatives of Kinder Morgan, one of whom you've heard from a little earlier, Mr. Ford, and as well as the legal counsel from King and Spalding. You know, it's a privilege, folks, to live in a society, to live in a country where we have freedom of speech. It's good to have the right to speak either for or against a proposition like this. And we are blessed to live in a society where we can do that. My remarks today are in opposition to the proposed Palmetto Pipeline, which is scheduled to be built, as we've just heard from Mr. Ford, from Jacksonville to Belton, South Carolina. A case can be made for the desirability of pipelines, but much can also be said against them. They are disruptive of the land and the waterways. They are dangerous and should not be built unless there is an overriding necessity which demands this need. This is not the case in this proposed pipeline. In this case, there is no overriding need for a pipeline. All of the cities along this proposed pipeline are adequately being supplied with petroleum products by various means, including some existing pipelines, as we have already heard from Mr. Ford. The operator, Kinder Morgan, is the largest pipeline operator in the world. They own and operate over 84,000 miles of pipeline all over the United States. Their record has been okay, but they have had some serious problems and some accidents. There are other reasons why this is negative for the environment. There is nothing you can say that's positive about what is proposed here. Land taken for the pipeline right-of-way can no longer be used in forestry and will be considerably limited for agricultural use and for access over the property by the owners of the property. There is potential danger to the land, to the water tables, to the streams, both short and long term. Pipelines are inherently risky, regardless of the steps taken and best intentions. Kinder Morgan and others have had significant problems with pipelines over the years. For example, this same company, Kinder Morgan, pled no contest to criminal charges in connection with a serious accident and spill in Walnut Creek, California. Just last Friday, if you read the newspaper, a pipeline exploded in Fresno, California. And a Google search will reveal many, many more such incidences. The next thing is the question of granting eminent domain to a private company. It takes away one of our core rights, which are spelled out in our Constitution and which have been honored by our governments, state, federal, and local, throughout the years. Eminent domain, which is used to build a highway, is owned by the government and is not profit-driven. Kinder Morgan is a publicly held, profit-making company. their necessity is to make profit for their shareholders is in no way comparable to the safety measures used by governments where they employ eminent domain. Georgia citizens benefit through the use of eminent domain to build a road. Georgia citizens will in no way benefit from this proposed pipeline. The proposed pipeline brings no benefits to Georgia, although more than 58% of it is in the state. Now, Mr. Ford said there are some benefits, and there may be a few gallons here and there. But for the most part, there's not much benefit to either Savannah or Augusta, and North Augusta is in South Carolina, not in Georgia. If Kinder Morgan is granted this right of eminent domain, all landowners in the path of this pipeline will have very limited recourse to protect their lands and to negotiate a fair deal. Mr. Chairman, this pipeline should not be built. It in no way helps the citizens of Georgia, and particularly those whose lands are affected. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I appreciate your comments, and I don't want to take nothing away from it. It's great. But I want to stress, if you go more than 2 minutes, and if you're clapping and taking away from their time, we're not going to be able to get but just a few people. To get the most people in here to get their comments, I would ask that you would refrain from clapping or making any kind of comments and do the 2 minutes. I know. But he was awesome. I know. I like his speech. That's not saying I'm picking one way or the other now, but it's a great speech, and I respect the gentleman immensely. But 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes. I'm going to have to, at the end of the 2 minutes, I'll have to stand up and next, after Neil, or Noel, it'll be Brighton Sanders. Brighton, there you go.
Well, I don't think I want to follow Mr. Morris, so I'll keep it very short. I think as we're going through this process, I'm Noel Swears and from Augusta, Georgia. I think it's important for us to recognize the Georgia law on eminent domain, and it's really well summed up in the Georgia law, and it's the Georgia Code section 22.1-2. The right of eminent domain is the right of the state through its regular organization to reassert, either temporarily or permanently, its dominion over any portion of the soil of the state on account of public exigency and for the public good. Thus, in the time of war or insurrection, the proper authorities may possess and hold any part of the territory of the state for the common safety. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, neither this state, nor any political subdivision thereof, nor any other condemnating authority shall use eminent domain unless it is for the public use.
Harold Yeller, you're up next.
I'm Brigham Sanders from Savannah, Georgia. I'm Brigham Sanders. I live in Scriven County. My family has been involved in farming all my life and before that time. I am currently the manager of Wade and Millhaven Plantations, which we have farm and timber operations in Scriven and Burke counties. I strongly believe it will be a big mistake to allow Kinder Morgan to install the pipeline through our fields and forest land, as well as the other property owners. I think there are a few things that I strongly justify the decline of this project. You cannot always be sure of what surface activity might change the pipeline, damage the pipeline. Tractors, bulldozers, and log trucks, all are in different weights, and a lot are extremely heavy. Farm workers may not fully understand or complete with the technical limitations. A simple mistake could have a huge impact or severe consequences. Typically, farming methods regularly disturb between 18 to 22 inches of the soil. However, it is common to have irrigation lines or electrical services improvements at greater depths. So levels can vary over time because of soil erosion, farming practices, and other reasons. A pipeline which starts at 4 feet could end up 2 feet or less. There's a big difference between an overhead electrical line, which is clearly visible, and then an underground line. We can work around the power poles. The pipeline leak in a field can make a unbelievable significant damage where you could not farm it for many years. I cannot believe there is any public convenience or necessity justifying running pipeline through a productive activity farm and timberland. This project should be declined. Thank you.
Henry Morgan's next.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Harold Yellen, not Yeller, Yellen, Y-E-L-L-I-N. I'm here today on behalf of Colonial Oil. I'm an attorney who has proudly represented businesses for over 30 years. And folks, it is really easy to be pro-business and be against this pipeline. Let me make 2 quick points. Point number 1, DOT, you are being asked to give Kinder Morgan an extraordinary power. And that power is the right to take private property. You are in fact the gatekeeper of that power, and you do have the authority to say no. There are no reported cases in Georgia. However, in 1998, an Illinois court considered the very issue that is before you today. Just like in Georgia, Illinois recognizes that an application for public convenience and necessity is required. It heard the petition of Lakehead Pipeline. It had no problem saying no. The petitioner could not show a public need for the additional oil. In Illinois, they found that an adequate supply of petroleum products already existed, just like Georgia. They found that the pipeline would not result in any public benefit, just like Georgia. We are just as smart as Illinois. DOT should say no. Point number 2, DOT should say no because Kinder Morgan has not met its burden of proof. If Kinder Morgan wants the right to take property, and that's a right that's otherwise reserved for the state of Georgia or a public utility, then Kinder Morgan needs to act publicly. Tell us who. Who will be using your pipeline? Tell us where. Where is the pipeline going without our having to beg you for the information? Tell us how much. What are the rates that shippers will pay for oil from your pipeline? Kinder Morgan, I have read your application. I know what could happen. I know what might happen. I have absolutely no idea what will happen. Anything less than full disclosure is an affront to Georgia citizens. In anticipation of only having 2 minutes, I have drafted a letter to Commissioner McMurray. I have outlined all the legal standards. Everything points to one conclusion. This pipeline does not meet the test of public necessity, and I'll submit my letter for the record now.
Al Robinson's next.
Mr. Bolden, good afternoon. Counselor. Kind of hard to follow up after those guys. So, being a lawyer, what I did today was, when all else fails, read the book. And the book says clearly that they need a description of their public convenience. And one of the few words I remember from my English training is the word "and." And it says "and necessity." So today I rode around Savannah and I took some pictures of an Enmark station, no lines, took some pictures of a Parker station, no lines, and where's Bobby Everett? I left out El Cheapo, but I'll get them next time, Bobby. I'll submit these pictures, there's 3 of them, for the record. Thank you. Now, as far as I can tell y'all, is there anybody who wasn't able to get gasoline to come here today? Now, just like I said last time when I was at the airport and spoke, I have 4 vehicles. I'm blessed to have 4 vehicles and 4 insurance payments. And I typically go to a well-known gas station on Skidaway Road called Enmark. That's part of the Colonial Oil Group. But I also go to El Cheapo's and I go to Parker's Market, okay? And I've never had any trouble getting any gas. I don't know what the future holds. It's just like Mr. Yellen today said, you wish you could know what the future holds. That's the only thing I wish I knew what the future held was about the stock market. Don't have that. Okay, so there's no need for necessity here, and they don't have it, and it's a 2-pronged operation. They are hiding behind a confidential agreement. It's all on FERC. That was their agreement. Didn't even list who their shippers were. The shippers aren't the one using the fuel. I'm the one using the fuel. As far as I can tell, all of y'all are using the fuel. Maybe some of those guys from Kinder Morgan used some fuel today from Enmark. I don't know. Now, in the FERC filing, which came up last year, and I've litigated in FERC twice, I've had that pleasure, with Kinder Morgan's predecessor, Southern Natural Gas, which I can tell you was not a pleasant experience. They said that it will ensure the supply needs of the markets continuously served during hurricanes. Who's ever had trouble getting gas during a hurricane? Sometimes we have trouble getting electricity. A lot of times we have trouble getting ice. Never had any trouble getting gasoline. Where's somebody from Kinder Morgan refute that? Now that was their own statement, their own affidavit in writing, sworn under oath to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Okay? Now, with all that said and done, I know Mr. Bolden's giving me the evil eye. And since Mr. Morris talks about it, I printed out about the explosion at Fresno. I want to submit that also. And I want to tell you something else. Where they want to put this line on my land is they want to put it right next to the natural gas line. He left that out today. He said they're already running a gas line in Chattanooga. They didn't put it in. Sonat put it in. Cypress put it in. They want to put a liquid line next to a gas line, next to 2 high power lines. One is 500 kV and one is 300 kV? 230, excuse me. Does that make sense?
Nancy Cunningham will be next. Please come do Nancy.
Hi, my name is Hal Robinson, and I'm a staff attorney with the Georgia Land Trust. We're a nonprofit organization committed to protecting land, primarily agriculture and timberland, for present and future generations. We've protected over 200,000 acres throughout Georgia. Now, just between Hinesville and Richmond Hill, that corridor along Fort Stewart, we've protected over 30,000 acres. This is land that has been identified as high priority for conservation. This is the same land that this pipeline is planned to go through, to the best we can tell. Now, in addition to these 30,000 acres of land owned by others that we help them protect, we also own land. In fact, we own a project there where we've been working on for 2 years to restore wetlands. The purpose of that project is to help Fort Stewart be able to continue training they need to do on post. It essentially mitigates their impact. This project furthers military readiness and Fort Stewart being here. This pipeline goes directly through this mitigation bank that we're about to bring online at the end of this year. Over 2 years worth of work, and lots of money has gone into this to help Fort Stewart continue its mission. Now, aside from how it impacts us, there are 3 ways that we're concerned it may impact you, and I want to make you aware of them. The first is limited crossings. They're proposing a depth of 4 feet and 9 feet. 4 feet everywhere, but where there's a woods road crossing, 9 feet. Fair enough, 9 feet will work for a truck loaded up to 86,000 pounds with logs. However, you cannot make a future crossing. Once this pipeline is in, if you divide your property and the new owner needs a new access, they can't do it. That one access, whatever the 9-foot depth is, wherever it is, that'll be it. You cannot take a 40,000 pound skidder or woods truck over something that's only 4 feet deep. Plus, when it gets wet in that area, those skidders will get down 2 feet anyway. Plus the tolerance in that. The other is risk. Now, they've conceded 4 feet isn't enough for a woods truck. Possibly also for a feller buncher skidder. Now, as someone else mentioned, we're talking about forever. So if a mistake happens in 20 years, it doesn't matter whose mistake it is. The bell has been rung, and there can be consequences that cannot be undone. And the last thing I will tell you is when we protect land near Fort Stewart, a requirement is a deed disclosure acknowledging the effects of vibrations. Look for this deed disclosure. This land is well within the land that we are required to put vibration disclosures in because of the impact that those vibrations, there's an artillery range, 2 miles, maybe 3 miles from this proposed range, can certainly be felt there. Have they accounted for the effects of these vibrations? I haven't seen anything to say so. So I thank you for your time. I appreciate your
support. Next will be Tanya.
Oh, you said me.
You said my name. I know. I'm calling the next one. Okay. Here. No. Here.
I'll sit right here.
No, you are next. I tell them next so they get ready.
Oh, sorry. My name is Nancy Cunningham. I live in Savannah, Georgia. A few years ago, the Department of Transportation wanted to put a 4-lane highway through a historic Atlanta neighborhood where I lived. In Atlanta, we call DOT the Department of Trespass. The then Congressman John Lewis, who was at that time a city councilman in Atlanta, he spoke at a rally and he said, "This road is evil." And I'm saying that about this pipeline today. I'm paraphrasing Congressman Lewis. This pipeline is evil. The Kinder Morgan pipeline does not benefit anyone in Georgia. It is not convenient. It is not necessary. We don't need it. We don't want it. And we're not gonna have it.
Okay, great. Now we have Tanya. I'll change this a little bit. And Troy Davis will be next.
Hi, my name is Tanya Bonatadovas. I'm your Savannah River keeper. I represent 1.4 million people who drink out of the Savannah River every day and many of the landowners standing in this room, and I appreciate all of you for making the drive down. This is democracy at work. This is great. Thank you so much for taking the time to come. I want to follow up a little bit with Mr. Morris's comments. One thing about a pipeline, it's not if with a pipeline, it's when. It's the same with a truck, it's the same with a boat. They're going to leak. One of the things that has become part of what we've noticed is there is no bond requirement. There is no requirement that money be set aside in case there is a spill. And when we've asked, what happens when there's a spill? I've dealt with a number of pipelines, and I will tell you, only once in the pipelines that I've dealt with has it been the company's fault. It's always been somebody drove a truck over, somebody knocked a lever, somebody drove a lawnmower where they shouldn't have, and then a 70,000-gallon spill occurs. And then what happens? The shifting of blame begins, and there's no money to clean it up because everybody's pointing at everybody else saying, you're responsible. I'm not comfortable that Kinder Morgan won't turn to you and say, you're responsible. I think that there needs to be at least a $28 million bond set aside to make sure that when a spill occurs, there will be adequate protections put in place. I have some serious questions about Kinder Morgan. They are an MLP, and as far as I can tell, they do not pay federal income tax. That is a tax that they get to defer indefinitely as long as they continue to grow. What are they doing today? What happens when they are no longer able to grow and that money becomes due? Can they handle that? Well, then you take a look at their balance sheet. A third of their balance sheet, $28 million of it is goodwill assets. You can't sell goodwill, folks. So, a third of their assets are intangible. There's no bond to protect us when a spill occurs. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure they can handle the tax bill they have already. The last thing that I will say is look at the competition. Walmart, for example, 20,000 barrels a day in Savannah. They want to bring in 27,000. What happens when Walmart comes in and floods the market? Thank you.
Up now will be Troy Davis, and Roy Hubbard will be next.
My name is Troy Davis. I live in Effingham County and have all my life. There's been quite a few good points made here tonight. You know, one thing we're not supposed to be talking about is, you know, the safety of the pipeline, the fish, the environment, and everything. And the reason why we shouldn't be is because we got plenty of people looking out for those issues. Us landowners do not have anybody looking out for us. We have placed faith in the government to protect our rights. This is a for-profit company. If they believe in capitalism, let them acquire their right-of-way and pay a market price for it and negotiate with the landowner. The price point will regulate itself. We need to also keep in mind that the government will profit from this pipeline by way of taxes, land disturbing fees, and other fees that go along. One thing, again, I think we have done here, I think they have issued their request for eminent domain prematurely. They have not even addressed the final location of the pipeline. That means we potentially have landowners that have not even had the chance to speak against the process of eminent domain. We've had plenty of examples of need around here. I mean, I can say that I need a grocery store. I can say that I need a pharmacy. What sort of precedent are we starting to set here to allow a private, for-profit company to utilize the very, very powerful rights of eminent domain?
Roy Hubbard. Up next will be Peach Hubbard. Please tell him.
Roy Hubbard, H-U-B-B-A-R-D.
My name is Roy Hubbard. I'm a resident of Richmond Hill. I have several concerns about Kinder Morgan and the Palmetto Pipeline. Some of the concerns have already been addressed. I have every respect for Commissioner McMurray's long service with the Georgia DOT, but in my opinion, he should not be shouldered with the responsibility of deciding whether or not to apply such an invasive and potentially damaging rule as a rule of eminent domain. There are 14 members on the DOT board. At the very least, they should be involved in the process. Certainly our elected representatives should be involved in the process. We're talking about Georgia's government jumping through hoops for a Texas billionaire who wants to take private property from Georgia's citizens for his own personal gain, and the idea is actually being considered. Let's explore exactly who the leadership of this state is getting in bed with. Ever heard of a company called Enron? Well, Mr. Kinder of Kinder Morgan was COO of Enron. Up until, mind you, about a year before they admitted that they were cooking the books. So Mr. Kinder's not guilty of anything. He wasn't charged with anything. His successor is in jail for 24 years in a federal prison. Let's move forward to Mr. Kinder's new company. Right now, as we speak, there's a class action suit pending against Kinder Morgan Investments in Chancery Court, Delaware. The suit is not about ecology. It's not about exploding pipelines. It's not about taking a private property for dubious reasons by a state government. It's not about any one of the hundreds of violations recorded where Kinder Morgan pipelines have been involved over the past few years. This suit is about Kinder Morgan investors being, and I quote, improperly disadvantaged through understated sustaining capital. I have no idea what that means. Kinder Morgan Investments has ensured that. This is the verbiage. Quarter after quarter, hundreds of millions of dollars exit Kinder Morgan Petroleum, listen carefully, and therefore are not available for needed maintenance. Wall Street investment report Kinder Morgan is referred to as a house of cards. The reason is because Kinder Morgan maintains a consistent business strategy to starve its pipelines and related infrastructure of routine maintenance spending. Carl Weimer, U.S.-based Pipeline Safety Trust, called Kinder Morgan the poster child of pipeline problems. Vancouver Observer newspaper, KM's plans have run into trouble in British Columbia, the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Texas, and many other places in North America. 2011, PHMSA, you know who that is? Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation cited Kinder Morgan for failing to maintain updated maps showing pipeline locations, failing to test pipeline safety devices, failing to maintain proper firefighting equipment, failing to inspect pipelines as required, failing to adequately monitor pipelines corrosion levels. My God, people, what do you need? Thank you.
Peach Hubbard's up and Henry Morgan is next. Different one.
Peach, P-E-A-C-H, H-U-B-B-A-R-D. My name is Peach Hubbard. I'm a resident of Bryan County. The Palmetto Pipeline not only puts our people and their property at risk, but our environment and wildlife as well. Hundreds of leaks and catastrophes from Kinder Morgan pipelines have been documented. This pipeline is the beginning of the end for the Georgia coast as we now know it. This pipeline is only one piece of a much bigger picture. This pipeline could transport oil from oil platforms that our president wants to put into our Georgia's offshore waters. The Deep Horizon disaster happened 5 years ago yesterday, April 20th, 2010. Dolphins are still dying in the Gulf 5 years later. Thousands of acres of marsh will never be restored. Thousands of local people there, including survivors of the oil platform explosion, have yet to be compensated for their losses and damages by our own government's compensation fund. 20 years after the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska, people are still litigating for compensation. If there is a pipeline leak or break here, how long will we have to wait for a cleanup or compensation for damages? BP has cleaned up less than 1/3 of their oil in the Gulf. There are now over 3,850 oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, which are each connected to as many as 20 oil wells. We don't want our beautiful coastal waters smothered with oil rigs. 5 years after the Deepwater Horizon disaster, our Congress has yet mandated any new safety regulations for the petroleum industry as they promised. I state facts about the Deepwater Horizon disaster because there has been little to no oversight by our government for the oil industry, and we're supposed to trust them to monitor pipelines and oil rigs? Our government has failed repeatedly to enforce the pathetic regulations that now currently exist for the oil and gas industry. The United States government profits from each oil lease by sacrificing our irreplaceable environment and our wildlife and our private property. Georgia's county commissions will profit from Kinder Morgan's pipeline by sacrificing our irreplaceable environment, our wildlife, and our private property. Follow the money, follow the dots. One pipeline can lead to numerous pipelines in the same Palmetto corridor, which in turn can lead to thousands of oil platforms smothering Georgia's coastal waters. There is no justification for this pipeline other than personal, industrial, and political greed. Stop the pipeline now.
Henry Morgan? He signed up twice? Okay, let's go ahead and Cynthia Arnsdorf? Did I say that right? Cynthia? Next will be Jeff Houghton after Cynthia. Please tell me. Yeah. Lady, you gotta give me that much. Your 2 minutes don't start till you tell them the name.
All right. Spell your last name for me. A-R-N, as in Nancy, S-D-O-R-F-F, as in double Frank. F. Arnsdorf, Cynthia. Cynthia Arnsdorf. Well, y'all are lucky. I have a sore throat and I'm soft-spoken. Get a little break with me. I'm one of those people in Effingham County that the pipe is not going through my property, but I'm right next to the property it's going through. So I represent those folks who down the road might find out that it gets moved and ends up on their property. The reason I'm here is twofold. One, the necessity, I believe, is for Kinder Morgan, not for the state of Georgia, and for the very reason that I got online before coming today and discovered that where they're making their money these days, and I brought a map, and this is a map. All the pipelines, Kinder Morgan. For those up close, it's the blue lines they're making money on. The ones that they're touting are the blue lines, the product lines, the line they want to put down in this area. So they have a necessity. That's their profit-making branch right now. And they talk about Kinder Morgan. Let's just be honest now. There's a Mr. Kinder and there's a Mr. Morgan. Mr. Kinder owns 11.4% of the stock. So any profits, 1 out of basically 10%, 1 out of 10 goes to one man. Not a big company, one man. Of the pipeline itself, just like you, I can understand why they're acting like it's already a done deal. Hubris. Now, I'm going to add a couple other little tidbits. I'm an adopted Georgian. I'm not from Georgia. I've only been here 40 years. People in this area have long memories. And I'm a little disappointed with all that's been going on, and thank you for being here, but I would have liked to have seen some other folks from DOT or some of the state representatives, because I've learned to have a long memory. Remember the Ogeechee? Things are not forgotten in this area. Now, I'll also add a little tidbit. My husband used to be with EPD in Atlanta for over 20 years. My husband is now deceased, and I own 142 acres right next to where the pipeline is going in. I can tell you where the pipeline is going. We have trees that are 800 to 1,000 years old. Back in the 1990s, now I haven't looked recently, so maybe they've discovered more, but from the tip of Florida to the tip of Maine, there were less than 10, actually I think it was more like 6 or 7 places in the whole eastern coast that has trees as old as this one area. So from an environmental viewpoint, you do have to consider that as far as necessity and weigh the balances. Thank you.
Jeff Houghton is up, and next is Sean Register. Is Mr. Houghton in the house? Sean, you're up. Where's he at? Emily Markston. Next will be Laura Benzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. My name's Emily Markestein, M-A-R-K-E-S-T-E-Y-N, and I'm your Ogeechee River Keeper. Wow, I haven't even said anything yet. And I'm not going to say anything really because I feel like we have had some awesome dynamic speakers thus far, and I don't want to rehash what's been said because we all know it's bad and we all know that we don't need this pipeline. So I'm going to bring it back to why we're here in this public hearing for the DOT. I'm going to respectfully say, Georgia DOT, please take a hint. Please oppose this Palmetto Pipeline. Please deny Kinder Morgan's application because you and I know that Kinder Morgan hasn't sufficiently shown that the public needs this for Georgia. And the burden of proof is on them and they just can't justify it. Thank you.
Next is Laura, and then we'll have Ryan Chandler.
Okay, that's her name on.
Oh.
She wants her name taken off.
Okay. Laura?
I am Laura Finizzi from Augusta, Georgia. P-H-I-N-I-Z-Y. One of the comments that Kinder Morgan made was that 86% of the lines were going through adjacent property, where adjacent lines have been. The property that I own that they want to go through has a city water line, and they want to go next to the city water line, next to Colonial Pipeline. And that would create quite a scene if something should be happen. This is also farmland where we run hay balers and heavy construction equipment. The family is trying to sell it and it's just been appraised as best use for residential. Can you put a residential subdivision with this pipeline? No. We do not need this pipeline. It does not need to go next to land that has already been raped by other pipelines or other environments. We just need to not have it at all. Thank you.
Ryan Chandler's next, and Ashby Nix will be after him.
Ryan Chandler, C-H-A-N-V-L-E-R, and I work with Colonial Group, the parent of Colonial Oil. And I just want to make it clear that we have no affiliation with the Colonial Pipeline that she was just mentioning. We have never used eminent domain to pursue any private venture within our company. So as I rode up here today, I noticed a protester out there on the road holding a sign that said, "What public benefit, what public need?" And to me, that's the question that's at the core of this process. It's interesting and a little bit more than ironic to me that Mr. Four led off with a comment about need tonight. But did anybody hear where that need was coming from? Customers. Customers. And so it's even a little bit more ironic then that in the filing that certainly they put a lot of thought into this application before the Georgia Department of Transportation. Guess who's mentioned first when it comes to any benefits this pipeline will provide? Can anybody guess? Let me quote. Kinder Morgan has developed a pipeline project that will provide significant benefits to the energy industry, not Georgia consumers, not our great state of Georgia, the energy industry. And I want to be the first to say that I don't begrudge any company trying to serve its customers. That is the American way. Businesses earn money by serving customers, and the customer is king most of the time. When eminent domain is implicated, customers take a back seat to the public, and transparency must reign. As much as their customers may benefit, this pipeline would fundamentally shift what is a level playing field in Georgia. You notice that Mr. Four said it will operate the same way as other pipelines. He did not say it will be priced the same way as other pipelines. Pipelines serving Georgia today, including Kinder Morgan and ExxonMobil's Plantation Pipeline, have one rate for everybody, not this pipeline. In their FERC filing, this pipeline contemplates 4 tiered rates dependent upon volume. We don't know any more details than that, but we do know that it's dramatically different than our existing level playing field. Why the shift? Is that really going to benefit Georgia? The implications to this are scary, but they don't have to be. And the solution to all of this is transparency. But if Kinder Morgan can't deliver transparency, I respectfully submit to the Georgia Department of Transportation that it has an obligation to deny their application for a public certificate of convenience and necessity. Thank you very much.
Up now is Ashby Nix, and next will be Michael Edgy.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ashby Nix. I'm with Satilla River Keeper, and I appreciate DOT holding this hearing this evening and giving opportunity for the public to speak about their concerns. The Satilla watershed is going to house, or would house, numerous miles of this pipeline. It would cross our little Satilla River, and much of our freshwater wetlands, tidal wetlands, marshes, and whatnot. We've heard a lot of good reasons about why there is no public need, no public benefit, and there is definitely no benefit for the environment in this situation either. Accidents do happen. There's one leak, statistics say that's more than one leak, failure, or rupture involving an oil or gas pipeline every day in the United States. So this is not a matter of if, but a matter of when. These can happen due to various reasons, due to trucks driving over pipelines, ATVs, faulty valves, all sorts of things. And I just want to kind of paint a picture of what a situation would look like on our coast with a leak or a pipeline rupture. At a river crossing, one day a broken pipe carrying the proposed 167 barrels per day of fuel would be equivalent to 700 fuel transport trucks dumping their loads into the river that day. And such a spill occurs 50 miles upstream from the mouth of our river on the Satilla, where it's proposed to cross our river. It would then quickly head both directions due to our significant tides here in the coast. Fuel floats. It can catch fire. It will travel, spreading fuel into swamps and marshes, killing fish and trees, and reach the beaches of areas like Cumberland and Jekyll Island in less than a day. This spread would then occur over the Sound, ruining beaches and our fisheries. Compare the spill travel time to how long it may take to discover a break, or fix a leak, and then to clean it up. Would this take days, weeks? In the meantime, our tides would transport fuel back and forth along our coast and our rivers. What protections would be in place to reduce such a likelihood of this disaster? So Satilla Riverkeeper, based on the lack of public need, the lack of public benefit, and to the significant risk to our coast, our rivers, our waters, our groundwater, our properties, ask that DOT deny the permit to Kinder Morgan. Thank you.
Up now is Michael Edgy.
Yes, sir.
Next will be Kathy Zittrower. Okay.
I'm Mike Edgy, E-D-G-Y. E-D-G-Y. Mike Edgy, E-D-G-Y. Well, I'm not a real good public speaker, but I got a few things I want to bring up. I'm not a environmentalist, but a lot of people think I am because I do support environmental issues very hard. But I'm a property owner and been a property, I'm the 5th generation of quite a few acres, not a lot, but this piece where they're going on our property, Georgia Power has taken 20 acres of our property through easements, domain. Highway 341 took another 10 acres of my property. Now these people want to come in and take another 5 acres, and I'm asking that y'all don't give them eminent domain because they're private businesses, and if they want to come to our county, they should pay the landowners what it takes, and they should assume all liabilities for if they have a spill, because it's going to happen. It's not when. It could happen, and then just like the land they're crossing on our property, they're cutting off 4 pieces, my property behind it. Well, I've got to go across that property to harvest my timber. That's my livelihood. Well, I just luckily cut timber on the piece right where they're taking this now. Over the next 100 years, they would take 5 acres of my property. It will cost my family, not me, I won't be here, I'll be dead and gone, but it'll cost $587,000 is what I cut, and if I cut every 15 to 20 years, that's how much money I'll lose over the next 100 and something years. That's my family's livelihood. I'm asking, and I know there's other landowners here that's got livelihood. If they want it, let them buy it. Let them pay a percentage of what coming across. Let them take responsibility of the environment. Because I put the same piece, I put 480 acres into a WRP. I'm in the timber business. I know if I die, my kids would cut that timber in a heartbeat. Well, the best thing I did, I put it into a protection, environmental easement, because we do need to protect our wetlands. But now, I've got it in, and I've got it where nobody in my family can cut it. But these people are going to come right across it. Now, that's not right. That's not right. And there's a lot of things. That's why I'm saying I'm not a environmentalist, because I make a living off of timber. But I think wetlands needs to be protected. I think we need to look out for our wetlands. The private industry, if they want to come to our state, let them come, but let them pay for what they have to do. Don't think they can come here and just let the government give them permission to take our land, because it is our livelihood. And I ask that these state leaders carries it back and tell them, hey, if you want to come, pay for it. Don't, and assume responsibility. If you have an oil spill, that's my thing. If there's an oil spill or gas spill on my property, who's going to clean it up? They're going to leave it to me or do damage on my property. They're not going to clean it up. They're going to say, well, I drove a tractor across it and broke the line. Well, they need to put in the crossings. I called and I checked on the crossings. They want me to pay for crossings across their pipeline. They're putting it in. They should have to pay for it.
Up next is Kathy and I'm not going there. And next is Janice
Bevel.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's Kathy, Z-I-T, Z as in zipper, I-T-T-R-O-U-E-R. Okay, yeah.
First of all, let me just start off by saying that I am opposed to the pipeline, and I would ask that Commissioner McMurray not grant the public convenience and necessity certificate. I would also ask that the Georgia Department of Revenue, the Georgia Department of Transportation do your own research and not take the facts and figures that Kinder Morgan and Palmetto Pipeline are providing you with. Look for your own evidence of what's right. I'd also like to say that I hope that whenever you're doing this, that you don't take the tax profits that I know that the state of Georgia will get from this. Don't let greed rule what common sense and good ethics stand for. And really, just thanks for listening and take my opposition to the pipeline.
Up next is Janice, and after her will be Claudette Collier.
My name is Janice Bevill, B-E-V-I-L-L. I am from Springfield, Georgia. Some folks have alluded to the fact of how long the property has been in their families. We have a King's grant to ours. It's been in our family since the Salzburgers settled Ebenezer. So we would also like to bring to you that so far we have 2 large power lines and a gas line already going through that property. They've taken almost 35 acres, so if you fly over, you see this big wide strip that's already there. One of my concerns is the liability of access. If someone goes on that property and damages their lines, am I responsible for it? If so, do I need to put all of my property in an LLC to protect what little bit I do have? So, you know, these are general concerns, and Department of Transportation needs to look at these things because public trust in our officials, even though it's commissioner appointed by DOT board and we have a General Assembly, we have had laws struck down over the past few years. One of them, a very important transportation bill that would have helped us with roads because a lot of it was lack of trust in our public officials. So here's another big thing that's being put on public officials, and many of these people here will be watching in the future as to how you handle this decision for us. Need is need. All of us need something. I'm sure that you can get 1,000 distributors saying that they will buy your gas, but the bottom line is, what is the definition of need for the citizens of Effingham and Scriven and Bryan and the other counties along whose taxpayers this will affect? Thank you.
Claudia Collier, and I'm having a real hard time reading this next name. What is that?
Eddie P. something.
Eddie P. something?
Who was in line behind her?
We can't read it. Eddie P. It's either Turner, Ferner. Okay. From Jones. Is that Jones, Georgia?
Looks like Jones, Georgia.
Jones, Georgia? Do we have somebody from Jones, Georgia in here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. After her be David Kyler.
Claudia Collier, C-L-A-U-D-I-A, C-O-L-L-I-E-R, and I'm from Bloomingdale in Effingham. Mr. McMurray, after hearing from these Georgia citizens, if you still find yourself compelled to approve this pipeline, I propose you consider this. When it comes to energy, our state legislators and public service commissioners are fond of remarking how Georgia is proud to watch what other states do to learn and avoid the pitfalls of their mistakes. Well, I suggest we learn from other pipelines across the country that the jobs promised will come from already established and coordinated teams in Texas, and other states out west, not Georgia. Let's change this. Let's require that all construction labor used on this pipeline come from Georgia, or even the local counties where land is being confiscated. If, as is usually the case, they claim there is no skilled labor available, then require that they provide training programs to our Georgia labor force. In this way, we might benefit long after the pipeline is in the ground and profits are flowing to Kinder Morgan, while Georgia residents are paying taxes on land they can no longer use. We might enjoy lower unemployment when these skilled individuals turn this employment experience into the next job installing solar or building wind turbines. We might enjoy less Medicaid and food stamp funding as some individuals build on their work experiences. And to the citizens of Georgia, I say, let us use a new opportunity given to us by our legislators this year. If every Georgian could install 1 kilowatt of solar by leasing panels, just paying for the electricity they generate. In other words, no more than you are paying for electricity right now. We could provide many more jobs than this pipeline claims. And we could eventually stop buying their product. When we stop buying their product, the rest of the world will follow. And this will lessen petroleum corporate power over our government and their power over us. Yes, I would venture to say installing and buying solar, creating distributed energy, can save our democracy. Thank you.
Up now is David Kyler, and next will be Bill Stevens.
Hey. It's a privilege to speak here tonight among so many gifted orators and to be in front of such a responsive audience. If I get a fraction of the response the others have, I will be very satisfied. I'm with the Center for a Sustainable Coast, which is a nonprofit organization established about 18 years ago. Our focus is to advocate responsible decisions that sustain coastal Georgia's economy and environment. And the reason why it's both economy and environment is because no other region that I've ever witnessed has more in common between those two elements. We support something like 40,000 jobs in this region. It's roughly a fifth of the economy in coastal Georgia, based on nature-based businesses. That's nature-based tourism, commercial and recreational fishing, and a variety of outdoor recreational activities that we all enjoy. And so the quality of life in our economy are integral and intertwined with the quality that we're here to protect tonight. And given that that is our objective, no decision is easier to object to than the approval of this pipeline. Not only is there a deficient public need, to the contrary, the pipeline poses a significant public threat to the people of coastal Georgia. We cannot allow a private sector profit-making objective to override public interest in such a critically important decision. After careful evaluation of public needs, economic interest of our people, and common sense, I conclude that just one point that can be drawn. That is that public necessity is best served by not building this pipeline. Therefore, the DOT commissioner must deny certification of it. Other speakers have alluded to the appalling safety record and, you might say, ethical standards of Kinder Morgan. That needs no further description. That alone would make me, if I were in a decision-making position, highly suspect of their ulterior motives. But in addition, I'd like to introduce some other thoughts on this. This is a poster we used recently at the Earth Day Festival here in Savannah. This draws parallels between offshore drilling and the pipeline. We think it's no coincidence, therefore double trouble. We think it's no coincidence that there's a pipeline paralleling the coast near two global ports in Jacksonville and Savannah and proposals for offshore drilling at a time when export of fossil fuels of the United States is burgeoning. It's never been growing faster. In fact, for the last 3 years, the United States has been the top producer in the world of both oil and gas. And yet our domestic markets are declining. Well, guess what, folks? That oil's got to be going somewhere. And those who want to profit from it are going to be exporting it. We say exporting fossil fuels, while it may be someone's business venture, has no public-related obligation to it, and therefore this pipeline has no public obligation associated with it. Anyway, so if you want a little tagline to go along with this, I have two of them. Stop the fossil fuel tail from wagging the national dog. That's a policy we can all seek to support, and I think is in the offing right now because fossil fuels are a dying industry, alternative energy is coming right along, and with our help we can make that happen a lot faster. Here's another tagline. Smoke the pipeline, kill the drill, and stop those spills.
Bill Stevens up and Russ Bryant is next.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Please tell me your name.
Thank everyone for being here. I'm Bill Stevens, Stephen's. I live in Savannah. My family's been here since the Salzburgers came over with Oglethorpe. I think it's a bad idea, as you will see from the shirt I'm wearing. The main concern I have is with the environment, the coastal area with the rivers, the aquifer, sorry, I can't read my notes here. Tourism, I forget about tourism. And all the things that the coast counts for, I think are put at risk by this proposed undertaking with no adequate compensation in terms of what it might do for the people or the state. And I think that it's unfortunate that people have not been involved adequately so far in the consideration of this undertaking, and we are now doing so. I hope we will have an effect, and I hope that the Department of Transportation will not approve the pipeline. Thank you very much.
Up now is Russ Bryant, and next will be Jimmy Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Bryant, B-R-Y-A-N-T. I would like to yield my 2 minutes back to Roy Hubbard, please.
We can't do that. I cannot do that.
You can't yield time back?
This cannot have anything else to say. We can't do that because one person, there could be 10 people sign up and that'd be it.
That's fine.
Let me clarify something. If we did that and yield time, 10 people could come and sign up and yield all the time to one person. They talk for 10 or 15 minutes and then we're going to not get as many people as we are. We're doing it to get as many comments as we can. I'm sorry. We did, I know, he didn't want his 2 minutes. I cannot yield his time. I'm sorry, that's the rules. Terry Keller, or Jimmy Henderson, and Terry Keller will be next.
I'm Jimmy Henderson, Henderson, spelled just like it sounds. There's a bunch of people here. If I'd have been Commissioner McMurray, I would have been here. I'm not going to go over all the issues that have been brought up, all good points. I'll just say that I have a gas line that runs through my property, has for as long as I can remember. All I can do with it is sit, watch the weeds grow. Can't plant anything on it, can't build anything on it, but I do get to pay the taxes on it. Please say no to this pipeline.
Up now is Terry Keller. Next will be Fulton Love. No, you gotta do this one. That's the TV station. Yeah, probably did. I got a bunch of them. Where's your name, please?
Okay, I'm Terry Keller, T-E.
So nervous. Hi, I'm Terry Keller. I'm from Kingsland, that's in Camden County. I'm the founder of StopSmartMetersGeorgia.org. Smart meters are the new electric meters, the digital ones. They've started a lot of fires and they emit radiation. They're very dangerous, a bad idea, just like the Palmetto Pipeline. An example of pipeline dangers. On March 29th, 2013, oil streamed from the ruptured pipeline and fumes enveloped Mayflower, Arkansas, in a caustic petrochemical plume, sickening hundreds of people in this small working-class community. It smelled like asphalt, but worse, says Genevieve Long, a mother of 4 who lives beside the lake. The air was so thick it burned your lungs, it burned your eyes. Crude oil contaminated 22 properties in the Northwood subdivision. Those families were evacuated, but neighbors who lived just a few hundred yards away or along oil-slicked Lake Conway were not. Intense exposure sparked acute symptoms that for many persisted for 3 to 4 months. Residents dry heaved or vomited for days on end. They suffered from bowel issues, endless migraines, nosebleeds, exhaustion, dizzy spells, and confusion. Their skin was covered in rashes that resembled chemical burns, and they gasped for breath. It was a mirror image of what had happened to the citizens of Marshall, Michigan, after the Enbridge spill 3 years before. A state report found that nearly 60% of those living in the vicinity experienced the same health problems. These are the classic symptoms of acute exposure to airborne petrochemicals, says Wilma Subra, an environmental scientist who works with communities impacted by oil spills. Children are even more vulnerable. I'm opposed to this pipeline. Please don't let it go through.
Next is Jennifer Hilburn.
My name is Fulton Love, Fulton Love. I live in Chatham County. I'm a business owner and a property owner. I agree with everything pretty much has been said here today. There's one thing that Kinder Morgan brought up that they didn't finish on. They told you they're going to generate 20 jobs in Atlanta to handle the oil flow going through this pipeline. They didn't tell you how many people they're going to put out of business, local truck drivers, watermen that help move this product up and down the waterways. This is something, folks, we don't need. These other people are doing a great job moving this stuff. They ain't having the problems with major spills. I object to the pipeline, and I thank you for your time. One other thing. Is any EPD people here? Anybody that's going to sign off on this thing? Or is this the only people that's going to sign off onto it? If y'all sign off on it, it's a done deal? Okay, thank you.
Up now is Jennifer Hilburn. Next is Renee Patton.
Hey y'all, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Jen Hilburn and I'm your Altamaha River Keeper. This here tonight is about your private property and the DOT's responsibility to make sure that we have a public need and necessity before the strong arm of the government gives away your private property under eminent domain to a private company. Now I came up here with lots of environmental facts to give you, but you all have spoken a little bit about it, so I won't speak too much on it. One thing I will say is Kinder Morgan has acknowledged that they'll be crossing 5 of our major rivers. and countless miles of wetlands. They've told us that they will do horizontal drilling, which is a safer drilling mechanism for our rivers. But when I asked them if they would do the same for our wetlands at their open houses, or I guess now public comment meetings, they remained silent. Now these are public resources, but many of our precious wetlands are actually on your private lands. As we've heard tonight, many of you have treasured these lands for many generations. I know of at least 2 incidences where this proposed pipeline will cut through gum swamps that belong to private property owners. This is something they have protected for generations and should have the ability to protect and not have seized for a pipeline that shows no public need. I request the DOT to stand up to their responsibility and deny this permit. Thank you all.
Up now is Renee Patton. Next is Charlie Milnine.
My name is Rena, R-E-N-A, Patton, P-A-T-T-O-N. I'm just a citizen, and so many of you are here as well. Not everybody's going to stand up and speak, but you can sign this form and you can flood the DOT office with what you believe and what you want to see happen. Don't fail to pick up one. Don't fail to send it in. Let them know how you feel. Thank you.
Up now is Charlie Milnine. Next is Daryl Turner. Please spell your name.
M-I-L-M-I-N-E. Charlie Milmine. M-I-L-M-I-N-E. Good evening. My name is Charlie Milmine. I am a resident of Savannah. I came to this evening meeting fully expecting to see some commissioners up here that would, show their interest in this particular issue. One of the problems that I've had in this whole process is dealing with it, because you go from information meetings to formal hearings to, what have you been doing? The first one I attended was in Hinesville. Now, I knew the DOT was one of the hosts of that meeting and other meetings, but no DOT person had been introduced at the beginning of the meeting, so my comment was, is there anybody here from DOT? And out there in the middle of the crowd, Mr. Bolden introduced himself and said, yes, I'm here, and I'm supposed to be here to watch and see what's going on, I guess. Now, I could ask the same question of this crowd. Do we have any stealth commissioners here? Now, why can't we introduce these people from DOT and let us know they're here? Anyway, this is an example of how the process has failed me, and I think DOT has failed us. I also cannot understand how the Attorney General can ask the DOT to have this meeting and not let us know what the Attorney General said. What has the DOT not been doing to all of a sudden answer the Attorney General? I also am talking about the process of this whole thing. I remember going to the meeting in Ebenezer, and when I registered, there was a column there that said, do you favor this or not? And I said, huh? I mean, I've never, in all my 75 years, I've been to hearings, and I've never, when I registered for a hearing, been asked to commit whether I was in favor of it or not. Basically, I was there to get information. I would also like to, a lot of my comments have already been made tonight. One thing I would like to add on here, Mr. Love mentioned the truck traffic, and I did a little bit of math on it. With the 52,000 barrels per day here in Richmond Hill, you are going to have an increase of 143 trucks every day traveling around here with oil. And these are semis with 750 barrels in the truck. Now this is traffic you don't have now. Thank you very much.
Up now is Daryl Turner. Next is Mimi. Mimi? Wait. Thank you. Please give her a name.
Ladies, I'm Daryl Turner, D-A-R-R-E-L-L, Turner, T-U-R-N-E-R, and I live near Tallapoosa, Georgia. And I just want to clear the air. I've sat here tonight and heard some very eloquent speeches, and I know they were all from the heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a lawyer, I'm not a professional speaker, but I do represent several hundred very highly skilled workers in the states of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. I represent the people that would build this pipeline. I represent the people that pay taxes in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And I'm here to tell every one of you, I've heard some of you say from the bottom of your heart, you're against this pipeline. I'm going to do everything I can to provide those workers of mine with some very good jobs. Thank y'all very much.
Up now is Mimi. What? Wait. Next is Karen Greeny.
Thank you. Can you say your name again? Yes. M-I-M-I-W-A-I-T-E. Wait. My notes. Can you hear me? Yes. Maybe I can see now. Houston-based Kinder Morgan plans to build a $1 billion pipeline to bring gasoline, ethanol, and diesel from the Gulf Coast and from South Carolina to Savannah and Jacksonville. 165 barrels of product per day. Please bear in mind that liquefied natural gas, a product of fracking, is the most flammable of energy products that KM will be shipping through our pine forested wetlands. This oil, this gas, it will not benefit the state of Georgia. Homeowners will lose the right to use their land, but they must pay taxes on it. All for the benefit of a huge corporation that is not even based in Georgia. But taxpayers will also bear the cost of restoring our coastal marshes, which will sustain tremendous ecological damage from the inevitable spills. Spills which result from any and all pipelines across all of America. Our marshes and our rivers and creeks are too valuable a resource to cede ownership and control to a private company. They are under protection of the Georgia DOT, which is the only agency that can give Kinder Morgan the certificate of convenience and necessity they need to take property by eminent domain. This is against our constitutional rights as landowners. Further, the Georgia DNR has a sacred obligation to protect and preserve our wetlands, our rivers, and our coastline from the severe damage exploding gasoline pipelines will wreak on the most sensitive land. Kinder Morgan is threatening landowners along the eastern seaboard, not just Georgia, but most states of the eastern seaboard, with eminent domain for their private profit, not for the good of those states, certainly not for the good of the great state of Georgia. Kinder Morgan is threatening the delicate ecology of Georgia's pride and joy, its 100-mile coastline. How is that so? Well, where do the marshes, the rivers, and the creeks that nurture our tiny shrimp, crabs, and fish and other minuscule creatures which become the basis of our fishing and shrimping and crabbing industries? Where do they end? They end in the Atlantic Ocean. We cannot allow pollution of our greatest resources. No pipeline, period. Thank you. I have my card. I'll have them with me if you want it.
Up now is Karen Greeny. Next is Lisa Norton.
My name is Karen Graney, and I'm a proud environmentalist. I've had a lot of people say I care about the environment, but I'm not an environmentalist, so I just want to speak up for being an environmentalist and being an activist. And I do a lot of volunteering here in the Savannah area for the Sierra Club, and that's what I'm here tonight to talk from that perspective. And I showed up at a rally the other day during the Earth Day Festival, and I made up a sign that said, "Oil and water don't mix." But I thought of something else tonight that doesn't mix, and that's secrecy and the power of eminent domain. Those two things do not mix at all. And Kinder Morgan has kept a lot of secrets from us. And I think that if Commissioner McMurray needs to put his rubber stamp in the drawer and start listening to what people are saying here today. I'm disappointed that he didn't come tonight. But somebody just handed me a piece of paper and pointed out that there are 2 state representatives here tonight, Representative John Burns and Representative Bill Hitchens. So I'm glad they're here, and I hope they're listening very carefully to everything that people have said here tonight. And I don't believe everyone said, there were so many good speakers, they said everything I wanted to say, so I'm going to stop right there.
Now is Lisa Norton. Next is Ruthie Williams.
Thank you. Lisa, L-I-S-A-N-O-R-T-O-N. My name is Lisa Norton. I'm from St. Simons, Georgia. I was at the Brunswick meeting that Kinder Morgan held. We had quite a few questions for them there also. We were very shocked to discover they had very little experience in cleaning up marshland damage from oil spills. Also, we commented that our rivers were not noted on their maps that they provided. Where are those rivers, Kinder Morgan? Have they already disappeared? I think it's terrible that they have not disclosed their contractual clients or shippers. As you will all recall, our children were exposed to lead-tainted toys, our pets exposed to tainted food product. Now, I can only guess who these shippers might be that are wanting our natural resources endangered for their benefit. I think we're entitled to know who would be the recipient of this product. Kinder Morgan is so arrogant that they have already leased a 2-year space down in Brunswick, Georgia to conduct business from. I'm a title abstractor. I have seen their folks in the courthouses, uneducated, untrained people attempting to do a title search on who owns your property. I suggest Kinder Morgan repairs their existing pipelines. The new ones will become old, and then what do you suggest? Build another? My interpretation of this attempt is legal thievery. Thank you. We may not be able to sue the state under sovereign immunity, but by God, those public servants are liable, and I hope they hear what we've got to say today, because they're fair game. If the people of Georgia don't start being represented for what they want in this democratic process. Thank you.
Up now is Ruthie Williams. Next is James Hellamy.
I'll be short. What? Ruthie Williams, W-I-L-L-I-M-S. A lot has been said here today, and all of you that can hear my voice, I want you to know that you cannot trust GDOT. They have lied to me on the basis of, I'm probably famous to some of you now because I've been fighting the Parkway to get us a noise barrier. And our elected officials and other officials have told me that I don't matter. What GDOT has been telling all of you, that you don't matter. You're here to tell them you do matter, and what you want in our future for us and our children matter. Thank you.
Up now is James Helmy, and next is Eva Bowman.
I'm a James Helmy from Rankin, Georgia, Effingham County.
Can you spell your last name?
Helmly. Not EY, it's LY. Our family has had land in Effingham County since the 1700s, and it is left on our shoulders to try to protect it. The people that's coming in and trying to take the land from us through the purpose of it will be eminent domain because we will not settle with them, have no integrity. They don't really probably have owned land and know the value of land for the family. If you remember Katrina, because I work for an agency in Effingham County that uses about 8,000 gallons of fuel every 5 days. When Katrina came through, the state of Georgia had a problem with the schools obtaining fuel because the pipelines in North Georgia were shut down. Fuel in the Savannah area was readily available. We had tanks in the ground at our agency full of fuel, and the dealers that we dealt with in this area said they could supply us with fuel. And people from Atlanta was calling down asking did we have a supply of fuel, and we did. North Georgia, because of the many hurricanes, when they shut the pipelines down and the refineries down on the Gulf Coast, dried up in North Georgia. So, is there a need down here for the fuel? I don't think so. We had fuel and the pipelines were down in North Georgia. And everybody said about private property, and we've got it, and they're going to take it, and I know they're going to take it, but you know, it's like when you vote. If you don't vote, you can't bitch. So if you just roll over and let people take stuff, you know, you can't do that. Thank you.
Up now is Eva Bowman. Next is John Barker.
Thank you. Yes, Eva Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N. I live off Blue Jay in Effingham County, 4 doors from Blue Jay, which also puts me 4 doors away from the pipeline. 4 doors. Ordinary home lots, just 4 away is the pipeline. I am opposed to the application. Someone might say I'm just saying, well, not in my backyard, literally my backyard. And they'd say, well, if not your backyard, well, then it has to go through someone's backyard. No, it doesn't. Specifically not this one, because Kinder Morgan's application may not be approved unless public necessity is proven. Not guessed at, not alluded to in the gentleman's 10 minutes remark, not claimed, but proven. Public necessity proven. And public benefit and necessity have not been proven. Therefore, Mr. McMurray, you may not approve the application. If this is such an easily defended and much needed project, if it's so necessary, Kinder Morgan could have and should have ridden into Georgia publicly and proudly defending its project. I've been in engineering all my life, and that's what I do with my projects, but they did not. Why not? Is it because Kinder Morgan thinks we're a bunch of backwater counties who won't oppose them? Who will take their supposed public, with those public meetings as public hearings and not send up an outrage that finally got us a public hearing? Is it because they think that our backwater politicians will agree with them? That our backwater politicians, as they might say, would be happy to be left in the middle with nothing to help prove the case. Kinder Morgan should have been more than willing to equip those politicians and us too with reams of proof of public necessity, but it wasn't done. Not only that, we didn't even have a map for the longest time, and national security was the reason. We sent up our outrage, and suddenly something as serious as national security was no longer a good enough reason. Kinder Morgan, we'd like to say to the DOT, is not a company you want to trust. It's not a company you want to take your facts and figures from. If the DOT are convinced of public necessity, tell us your reasoning so that we may discuss it with you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Tell us your reasoning. But will you? If the commission votes yes, I heartily recommend that when they eventually give that public interview, that they not use Kinder Morgan's facts and figures, but only their own reasoning. When I do my own reasoning, it comes to something like this. If a commuter drives 20,000 miles a year, and that may be a little high, and gets 20 miles to the gallon, and that may be a little low, but in round figures, that commuter uses 1,000 gallons a year. If gas prices fall 1 cent, that commuter has saved $10 a year. I may be wrong, it may be twice that much. They may save $20 a year. I may be wrong, it may be twice that. They may save $40 a year. If the state is multiplying that out and wants to claim millions of dollars of economic benefit to the state, to us, to our counties, because of money saved, I have 3 things to say. Number 1, Kinder Morgan said an hour ago that they can say nothing about whether gas prices will fall. Can't really say, can't guarantee, prices may not fall. Number 2, if the state wants to save me and you $20 a year to push into the economy, there are lots of ways they can do that. Number 3, Kinder Morgan, I don't want your $20. Mr. McMurray, say no to this pipeline. Deny, as you must, the application.
Up now is John Barker. Next will be Tony Cantor.
Mr. Bolden,
Please, Tony.
are we going to continue going for Washington?
Well, we got about 20, 15 more.
Okay, then we're going to have to take a break.
Okay, well, let me talk to her.
John Barker, B-A-R-K-E-R. Well, our Republican friends, whom they are good friends of mine, just gave the DOT $1 billion last week. I guess that's not enough. We're coming back here. I had some experience with Mr. Kinder back in the 90s in Enron. Now since 15, I feel like he's coming back for a second shot. He didn't get enough that time. I own a little piece of land in Liberty County, and that gas line came through. The former gas line came through, and I still got some problems. If you just submitted the map last week, why doesn't the 90-day start over? I have read every word on this pipeline since I got my first care package, and if you notice, there's a groundswell. There is a wave coming in right now. I mean, the opposition is just getting organized, and the time is running out. And we just found out where the hell we got to look for you. Another thing, you're going to put in a 42-inch or 24-inch line. Why do you need 75 feet to do that, next to another 75-foot line, next to another 300-foot line? If you've ever rode in an airplane and looked down from 20,000 feet, you see this desecrated land there, especially going up a mountain. It looks like a swath, like a tornado went through it. That's a pipeline. And the way they do these pipelines is they just tag on to the next one so it gets wider and wider and wider. And not only that, they come in and they take it 50 feet, then they take 25 feet, cut all your trees off of it, and then it reverts back to you. They pay you for the trees, but they don't pay to replant the trees that they just took out of there. It is just, the deck is stacked against the property owner. I was one of the last ones to agree with them on that, and it really didn't benefit me much. I just didn't see any other way to go on it. And they called me about surveying the land. It does you no good. They act like that's some kind of approval of doing this to tell the guy not to go. There's no reason to do that. They're going to do it anyway. I disagree with it. I disagree with the time constraints on it. I read in the Savannah Morning News, they're going to have 1 day to read these all these comments you're sending in. If you think they're going to read one dang comment, you've got more faith in them than I do. I'm against it 100%.
Okay, it's about 7:04, and unfortunately, the court reporters have to take a break or quit, so we're cutting it off. We're going to take one more. You're more than welcome to put any comments on paper. They're out there on the table. Drop them in the box. But we're going to take Tony Cantor.
Excuse me, wait 1 second, wait.
Center.
Wait 1 second while I put it.
TONYCENTER. TER. All right. Savannah Morning News just left. Are you ready?
Thank you.
Okay, is she ready too? Okay. I guess everybody wants to stretch. My name is Tony Center. I drove down with my bride to be from Savannah, Georgia. I'm from Chatham County. I happen to be a county commissioner there. I just came to lend my minuscule voice against this pipeline proposal. And I want to tell you that there's 3 primary reasons. There's an environmental concern that people are much more educated and erudite have spoken about that. But I also looked up, as many of you did, the people behind Kinder Morgan. And if Mr. Kinder really wants to help people of the United States, use the $12 billion he gained from lying, stealing, and cheating through Enron to pay back those thousands of people who lost their life savings to Enron. But primarily, there's a right and there's a wrong. I'm a lawyer. I can also read the law. But you're asking the state to take private property to give to a for-profit business to make money. And I believe, I support jobs and labor. But I'm going to tell you, Coca-Cola, Harold Young's a real estate attorney, he can correct me wrong. Coca-Cola did not ask for eminent domain, and they built a good company and gave hundreds of thousands of jobs. Gulfstream didn't ask for eminent domain. Mr. Morris just left. The Savannah Morning News never asked for eminent domain, and they built profit-making companies and gave hundreds of thousands of jobs. If I want to put a Wendy's on the corner, can I go ask the state to make that person sell it to me? Because I'm going to sell more hamburgers and make it better for the public? No. There's just a right and there's a wrong. And it's wrong to take private property through state power to give to a profit-making company. Let them go out and negotiate. If they can't do it, they can't build it. I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your comments tonight. Please, if you didn't get a chance to speak tonight, you can come see us at the second public hearing in Waynesville. It's on Waynesboro. I'm from Atlanta. On May 7th at 5 o'clock. Also, there are forms out there in the public comment box, and the address is on the form. Thanks. All right, Waynesboro.